What a sad, sad week for liberty. For some reason, people seem to think we should be cheering on Homeland Security, an agency built on a lie that should not even exist, by the way. DHS is sweeping new powers via Trump's executive orders to conduct mass raids all across America in what Trump himself literally referred to as a military operation in America's streets.
And they're the bad ones. And it's a military operation.
So let me get this straight. That's awesome now. And we should also make sure and dehumanize people too and call them illegals. Like that is a noun, or that a human being can be illegal. So it makes it easier to cheer on the government Gestapo squads rounding up people like cattle. And it's not like our government's economic raping and pillaging of these countries to begin with. The gun and drug running, the endless wars, the backroom deals, NAFTA, Walmart, stuff like that. It's not like any of that stuff caused this immigration crisis in the first place. Let's run begging to the state that caused the very problem we want fixed. Beg them to fix it by cracking down on us and turning this whole place into an even bigger papers, please police state which impedes on everyone's civil liberties. That makes sense. Right? That makes sense. I mean, it isn't like this government has ever authorized the roundup and internment of American citizens, people who were born here during World War II, and force them out of their homes and businesses and jobs and force them into camps and destroy their lives or anything like that. I mean, there's no way something like that could ever happen again, could it? I mean, it isn't like the Pentagon was forced to release a video recently via FOIA which proves they're training for urban warfare in the streets because they know by 2030 there's going to be rage and outcry over the lack of employment.
Social structures will be equally challenged, if not dysfunctional, as historic ways of life clash with modern living, ethnic and racial differences are forced to live together, and criminal networks offer opportunity for the growing mass of unemployed.
You know, stuff like that. By the way, saying it's already a papers, please police state is not a valid argument as to why we should all champion on and campaign for our further enslavement. In fact, the punchline on that came yesterday when it was reported that U.S. citizens were being detained and ID'd getting off of a domestic flight within the United States from San Francisco to JFK Airport. That's right, because we aren't already treated like criminal cattle when we get on the plane to begin with. We aren't already forced to take off our half-inch thick flip-flops because we might be hiding a bomb in our toenails or something, and go through a radiating body scanner or get groped by some sweaty middle-aged people who look like they wear trench coats and hand out candy at the park on a Sunday afternoon from their white windowless van or anything like that. We aren't already guilty until proven innocent every single time we step into an airport. Poor baby's crying. They made him take off her little teeny bracelet that was around her ankle. That's ridiculous. But hey, there might be one illegal immigrant on the plane. Begging the question, by the way, Homeland Security, how did an illegal immigrant even get on a plane anyway if TSA does its job so damn well? But there wasn't an illegal immigrant on the plane. Just a bunch of legal American citizens who were stopped and, wait for it, because here's the punchline, asked for their papers, please. In fact, it says when Delta Flight 1583 from San Francisco landed in New York around 8:30 p.m., there were customs agents stationed on either side of the plane door, and as the plane landed, passengers were told to take out their papers. The head flight attendant came on and said, "Please have your papers ready," 3 or 4 times, said Matt O'Rourke of Manhattan. Someone corrected her, and she said, "Oh, I mean photo IDs," he added, to which people were kind of weirded out. Yeah. And he said they studied everyone's ID very carefully. You could tell they weren't just looking for my name. They read my entire ID and looked at me the entire time and probably made him feel like a total criminal because he dared to get on a plane in his home country and fly from one part of it to another part of it. This is a dragnet, it's a Gestapo dragnet, and it targeted everyone. And there were no illegal immigrants, there were just American citizens being treated even more like slaves than usual at the airport, which is already a place that we all get treated like slaves at. But hey, if that's not enough for you, there's always the supreme enemy of civil liberties, Jeff Sessions, who took his throne behind his cush new desk at the DOJ. You know Sessions, right? The guy who supports things like civil asset forfeiture and said he's, quote, a big fan of the DEA. Well, that day, Sean Spicer came out and said the feds are going to start ramping up their phony war against a harmless plan.
With Jeff Sessions over at the Department of Justice as AG, what's going to be the Trump administration's position on marijuana legalization where it's in a state-federal conflict like this?
There's 2 distinct issues here: medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. I think medical marijuana, I've said before that the president understands the pain and suffering that many people go through who are facing especially terminal diseases, and the comfort that some of these drugs, including medical marijuana, can bring to them. There's a big difference between that and recreational marijuana. And I think that when you see something like the opioid addiction crisis blossoming in so many states around this country, the last thing that we should be doing is encouraging people. There is still a federal law. There is still a federal law that we need to abide by in terms of the medical, when it comes to recreational marijuana and other drugs of that nature. So I think there's a big difference.
The implication being that the Trump administration is now going to go against the will of the voters in 8 states who have passed recreational marijuana laws, including the entire west coast of the country, something that only 59% of all Americans approve at this point in time, because it's been 80 years since Reefer Madness came out, and the majority of us have wised up to the fact that countless scientific studies prove that marijuana has a legitimate benefit, and there's no reason it should still be illegal, and the only reason it is still illegal is because the phony drug war not only funds and justifies an entire criminal justice and prison industrial complex in this country, where they put more people away per capita than in any other country on the face of the earth, but every time a state legalizes marijuana, pharmaceutical companies lose profits on their addictive painkillers, which may or may not have come up in the meeting, by the way, that all of the heads of these major pharmaceutical companies had with Trump at the White House just a few weeks ago. But where are they going to put all those people? Just leave that to Sessions, who on the same day Spicer was announcing this new ramped up war on legal recreational marijuana, announced they're also going to be reversing the move to phase out the disastrous human rights abusing self-fulfilling prophecies that are the private for-profit prisons that Sessions loves so much. He's only been supporting them for 2 decades and has an intimate relationship with many of the larger companies. They're going to need all those prisons to lock up even more people for nonviolent drug offenses, despite the plant being fully legal in 16% of the country now, with another 17 states in the process of fully legalizing it. And while all of this is going on, in the foreground, in the background, they're looking at a long-term commitment to operations in Iraq. They're about to send even more troops to Syria, and a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group is antagonizing China in the South Sea because our new Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, just can't wait to go to war with China.
We're going to have to send China a clear signal that first, the island building stops, and second, your access to those islands is also not going to be allowed.
Just like Steve Bannon said we would no doubt be doing within the next 10 years. And no one's even mentioned Afghanistan, which is now America's longest war. Either you see what's happening here, or you don't. But I just want to know, when did we all hop into a time machine and go back to the Bush days? When did that happen? I must have missed it when I was too busy yelling